All right, hey team, welcome to another episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. I'm joined by my friend and client here today, Tim Gutwein with AgXplore. Tim, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
I think this is going to be a good conversation.
Yes, looking forward to it.
I'm going to dive in and give you the first question that everybody gets.
Yep.
What does it mean for you to be intentional?
Wow. So actually, you sent me these questions a little bit early, so I've had a little bit of time to reflect. And this was actually a hard question for me to really answer, but it hit me really like between the eyes this morning, kind of early. But it's clarity. So when I have clarity, then I can be intentional about what it is I want to achieve. And I'll put in a plug for Christine Jewell. That's something that she taught me. It took probably a lot of hammering on my hard head, but just having clarity about what's important and then trying to be intentional about the things that'll give me what I'm looking for with respect to
Right. What just follow-up question to that. What do you think what is it about the clarity that helps with the intention?
Well, so if anybody that knows me knows I'm a little bit like all over the place. And as a leader, if I don't have clarity, how are people going to follow me, right? Or how are people going to like buy into the dream or buy into where it is we're trying to go? And so when I have clarity, it's a lot easier for me and for the people that I'm surrounded with to actually like move in the same direction. Yeah,
I think that's wise, and I know a lot of people really struggle because getting clear requires you to be intentional for yourself, take time to sit down, and you need that space to go get your thoughts out on paper, talk to somebody about it, trusted advocates or whoever, right, to be able to get through it and get clear. So absolutely. Tim, what I'm guessing that you had a lot of options where you could allocate your time and resources. Why did you settle on AgXplore? And just share with us a little bit about why AgXplore, and what do you find? How did you end up owning and operating this business?
Sure. So back in 2001, I was in the financial services industry and realized that a lot of my income, a lot of my net worth was tied up in the stock market, and that started to concern me, particularly after 9/11. And so I started looking at diversifying into real estate. But I really wanted to be in a business, not real estate per se. And so kind of just through a series of odd circumstances, ran into the founder of AgXplore. And what I saw is a business that had products that really made a significant impact for the customer. And I saw a business that was highly scalable. So you bring those things together, and I saw a really great opportunity to grow. When I joined the company, we had 5 employees, and in 2018, when I bought the founder out, we had about 70 or 75 employees. It's been quite the ride. Couldn't have done it without his vision early on. And then since I bought the company, we've really, I think, taken it to the next level. Wow. But really, it's just, I think anytime you can have a business that brings real value to your customers and makes significant impact in their enterprises, I think that's what it's all about, and that's what we've been able to do with AgXplore.
Awesome. Beautiful. You had a pretty unique upbringing. I've gotten to know a little bit about that since we met in 2021. But you had a very unique upbringing, maybe compared to a lot of folks in this space, in this industry. So talk a little bit about that, and how has that impacted your leadership style or just approach to leadership in general?
Sure. So my mother and father were missionaries in Thailand. And so I was born in Bangkok, Thailand in 1967. My mom was actually riding in a tuk-tuk when she went into labor with me. And so really kind of an interesting story. Shortly after I was born, we moved to a small village in northeast Thailand, kind of along the border of the country of Laos, up near Vietnam. And this was actually during the Vietnam War. Anyway, the little village that we lived in didn't have running water, didn't have electricity. And so that's kind of where I got my start, living in a small village. My mother homeschooled me. At age 12, I went away to boarding school. But I think as I think about my raising and the way I was brought up, I think what I really probably sets me apart from a lot of people is I just have this really strong curiosity. And I even as a small child, I always asked why. Like I remember my parents telling me the story about Noah and the ark and all the animals. I'm like, I don't believe that, right?
Sure,
Not that I didn't believe the Bible, but I just didn't believe that all those animals went on the ark. But the point is I always questioned everything. And I think the other thing that my upbringing brought me is just this necessity to solve problems, right? When you live in a foreign country and you don't speak all the languages, and Thailand has a lot of different languages, is learning how do you solve a problem. Sometimes communication is difficult and things like that. So I think as a leader, I've always asked why, always try to look at things from different perspectives, and then just really finding ways to solve problems.
Yeah. So that curiosity piece. So let's tie that to clarity. Let's tie that to, decision making or being able to lead teams. So how does that actually get to show up in the day-to-day of running a business?
I think, and I hope certainly, that when someone has maybe a different point of view than mine, that I'm willing to at least listen and consider. And I think one of the things that I do as a leader is I challenge people. Like, even if I agree with somebody, I'll typically challenge their point of view, because I want to see, are they just throwing it out there because that's the thing that's on their mind, or they really have strong conviction? And so I oftentimes will challenge somebody's thoughts or somebody's ideas, not because I think they're wrong, but I want to know, have they really thought this thing out? Do they really believe in what it is that they're proposing?
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. I think so often in corporate America, we lose some of that curiosity or that willingness to challenge people. And of course, as the owner and leader, you have to challenge people to level up. You have to challenge beliefs. You also need people around you that will challenge, your thoughts and ideas too, which I know is an important piece. But we lose that curiosity so often. And it's unfortunate because there's so much we can learn about each other. There's so much we can learn about customers. So much we can learn about the people that work for us, and I think that's a really important piece. And then being able to take that problem-solving background, right, and figure out how do we put those puzzle pieces together, takes a really unique individual. So that's why I was asking on that background, because I said, there's no way that growing up in Thailand and being in that part of the world, especially during the Vietnam War, that's not. I grew up poor in central Minnesota, but a different level of what you.
But you still learn to solve problems.
Of course, yeah. You learn you got to get really creative.
Do we have time for a funny little story?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my mother raised 3 boys in a village in Thailand and tried to raise us with a certain amount of Western influence. And so we ate American food and things like that. Well, anyway, so this past weekend I was on a bachelor's trip with my son and a bunch of guys. We all went to the grocery store and went shopping and did all this stuff. Well, we're sitting there in the morning and we want to have biscuits and gravy, but we had the biscuits in a can, but we didn't have any way to make the gravy. And I said to my son, I said, Matt, your grandmother would figure out how to make gravy. And what we ended up doing is crumbling up Ritz crackers and using that to thicken the gravy, and it worked like a dream. And it's some of the best gravy we've ever had. But it's just like stopping for a minute, saying we don't have flour, but how are we going to make gravy?
Right.
Just like. And I learned that from my mother, right? It's just there's got to be a way to do this.
Yeah. I feel like I grew up kind of the same way. My mom in the kitchen and my dad outside on the farm. He was always making something. He wanted to have extra heat for the house in the winter. I grew up in central Minnesota. We burned wood for heat, and only wood. We didn't have a central heat. There was no HVAC.
Right.
There were no way to get air even to the upstairs of our house. So he actually went out and built his own solar panel, which was really nothing more than just a sheet of plywood, and he cut pop cans and beer cans halfway and opened them, spray painted everything black, and then built walls around it and put a sheet of plastic over the top of it, stapled it all down, fastened it all down so that air would heat up on the inside, and then it would blow into our house and actually heat the kitchen. And it worked.
Fantastic.
It worked all winter long.
That's amazing.
And it worked really well in the summer, and he didn't put in a stop for the summertime.
Right.
So
you're not better in the summer, right?
Yeah, you got to think ahead a little bit. But those things, it's fun to talk about, and people don't give it enough credit. But it's those little things that we grew up with that actually have a lot to do with who we become. And those are skill sets that are irreplaceable now in the workplace. And so for the people that are listening in or watching on YouTube right now, I'd encourage them to take a look at, what are those unique situations that you grew up with, right? That were intentional or unintentional at the time. Like, that is your gift. That's your thing now, right? And you can actually put that to use intentionally today.
A little plug. So this is my opinion, but I believe the farmer is probably one of the best people in the world in terms of solving difficult problems and coming up with these solutions that are just completely out of the box.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about this industry is just watching the way farmers solve problems, because they have to solve so many problems in the course of a year.
Right. Yep. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. We're at Commodity Classic, sitting here on the trade show floor. So if you guys are hearing some stuff in the background, that's where that's coming from. But what's something about AgXplore that you'd like your customers and prospective customers to know?
Yeah. So I thought about this one as well, and it's going to sound a little odd coming from me as the CEO of a company, but people should not do business with us because of our products. It sounds a little odd, right? But what I'm really saying is I know we have great products. I would put our products up against anybody's products out there.
Sure.
But that's not the reason somebody should do business with us. It's the folks that work for us that have the knowledge on how to use those products. I tell a story. 2 years ago, I had neck surgery. I had C5 and C6 fused. I didn't care what kind of scalpel the surgeon was going to use, right? I want to know that the surgeon knew how to use the scalpel, right?
Right,
It's the same thing with us. We have great tools, but it's the people that work for us and actually educate our customers of how to use the product. So don't use us because of our products, but use us because of our people.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And I've gotten to know a good number of your sales team over the last couple of years and connect with these guys, communicate with these guys frequently. Had dinner with several of them last night. You know, and it's just cool to see. I mean, there's a lot of loyalty with the team that's around, that's with you guys today. I mean, a lot of these guys have been through thick and thin over the last, and there's a lot of competition over talent. So there's some of them that are sticking with you, probably for good reason. Which leads me to my next question, which you and the leadership team have invested significantly in your team and also your customers' teams, which I think is really unique. So why has that been such an important investment for you from a personal development, professional development standpoint?
Yeah. So as it relates to Thrive,
Yep.
and your organization, one of the things that I've become more and more aware of and more convinced of is the necessity to be healthy, body, mind, and soul.
Yep.
Right. I always thought if I kept my body strong, right, everything else would kind of happen. But I realized that I was neglecting other aspects of my life. And so I think one of the things that your organization does so well, and the reason we've invested so heavily with you guys, is you guys focus on body, mind, and soul, and just bringing all that together. And that's been really important for me personally. But I also have seen, when we invite both our employees and customers to a Thrive event, so often it's not the professional side of their life that needs help, right?
Yeah.
It's personal, or maybe it's their physical body. And maybe they're doing great, or as good as they could professionally, but when they get these other things in balance, all of a sudden it just takes people to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. I think the other thing that's been so critical for us is anytime we invest in our people, we're really investing in relationships. And relationships are what our business is all about.
Yeah. Awesome. It's a huge piece, and I appreciate that you get it, because here's one of the things that the way I think some leaders think about it is it's almost like horse trading when it comes to employees. Right. If this one leaves, we can get other ones. Everybody in the ag industry seems to be struggling in the retention of talent. We talk a lot about that on this podcast and other episodes. But you guys are actually doing something about that, right? And you're not only helping your team, right, but you're also helping your customers' teams, right, in your ag retail through your distribution, which is also really unique. So we believe in partnership level value, and you guys are actually doing what's required, or one of the thing that's required or helpful in making that happen, which I think has been very cool. So I always appreciate that, and getting to work with your team. It's such a great group, and worthy of investment. I wish more leaders got how important that balance is. And often we think, well, if we're going to do training, right, I just need sales training, right? Or I just need product training, or I just need financial training, or whatever. And we need skill training, of course. But how do we get that in a delivery mechanism that people actually want to participate in? That's the challenging piece, and most people overlook it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim, I'm going to go a little bit personal here for a second. So, who has been the biggest influence on you in your life?
Yeah, well, so really, really good question. And once again, probably my answer is a little bit different, and that is no one. And what I mean by that is there's not one person that has really made just such a huge impact. But as I think back through my life, I had a high school teacher that really kind of got me pointed in a good direction. Once again, growing up in Thailand, I didn't have a lot of understanding of how to have a career. I didn't understand what I needed to do to make that happen. Yeah. And he kind of helped me think through some of the things, looked at some of my skills, and helped me think through how can I actually take what I'm fairly good at and apply that into a job. So in high school, somebody like that, I've learned so much from my son. He's all about the journey and not about the destination. I'm all about the destination and not the journey. Sure. And so just learning to actually enjoy the journey is something I've learned from him. From my daughter, I've learned to be content. She is content with very little, not because she has to have very little, but because she chooses to have little. So just contentment I learned from her. I've the founder of AgXplore, I learned so much from him about how to deal with crisis and how to deal when things don't go the way you want. And one of the things that he taught me that was really important is when you don't know the answer to a question, sometimes waiting is the best course of action. And that's not natural to me. I want to go fast. Right? I want to make things happen. And sometimes just stopping and breathing and maybe waiting a day or two or a month or a year is the right answer.
Yeah, that's a really big one. I actually had this come up recently where I needed to turn a proposal around relatively quickly, but I didn't know that the decision I was going to make was actually best for our business, and then I'm also not sure if it was best for their business, right? So I asked for 2 days to sit down and say, I need to work my math on this, and get some advice before I go pull the trigger and go full bore. So that's some pretty good solid advice.
Well, and so and you brought that up. So the other thing, in terms of people that impact me, is actually having a network of wise people that you can talk to, right? And just picking up the phone sometimes and just talking something out with a friend. So once again, probably not one person as much as just I have a network of people that I go to when I need help, and I can talk things through. And sometimes I just have to dump. Other times I and talk things out. Other times I'm really seeking advice and counsel. But I find that for me, the slower I make decisions and the more I lean on my network, the better. The quicker I go, usually the worse it is.
Things tend to end up in a fiery wreck when we go a little bit too quickly. And I think everybody learns and grows and goes through different phases of that over life, over the course of their life, and it's since this podcast is about intentional leadership focused on ag companies, this is one thing I would ask people to consider is to really start thinking about, as you mentioned, okay, who is in your corner? Who are your who's? Christine and I recently read a book called it's Who Not How. Right, which is really, I would recommend this to anybody. Dan Sullivan, who's the founder of Strategic Coach, wrote this book, Who Not How, and it's all about finding those people that, when it comes to, I'll give you just a really quick example. So we're starting an apparel brand alongside that's a spinoff from some of our taglines of our training business, which seems unrelated, but it's kind of cool. A lot of people have been asking for our Survival is Dead t-shirts. They've been asking for more Thrive Today t-shirts. So we're like, well, let's just start a little apparel company. If nothing, maybe we do a little bit per year, and it's not really a big money maker, but we're getting more branding out there. Let's do a little thing. So we came up with this, I found a vendor that makes a really cool, really high quality sweatshirt, and really high quality t-shirt. It's great. So I had been, I wanted to involve my daughter into this process, right? So I'm like, hey, how about we'll have you guys, you can build the little Shopify website, build this website, we'll get it going. And I've been waiting on this thing for about 3 weeks. Meanwhile, I've got customers, right? So I'm like, my first customers that are waiting to make an order, right? And it drives me nuts if a customer wants to make an order and I can't fulfill it. So I said to, and she's going on a trip with her mom to Italy this week. I'm like, this thing ain't getting done. So I wrote the founder of the sweatshirt company. I was like, hey, do you guys have any sort of resource for this? He's like, yeah, actually, I can just put it together for you. I'll send you the link later today.
Wow.
So and I'm talking in 2 hours and 120 minutes, we had a live ordering website with a discount code ready to rock and roll. And so sometimes we either try to do it ourselves or we outsource to the wrong person. It's it's really about finding the right who in order to be able to make the how. But what that takes is time, sitting back, who are the people in my network, getting advice, be willing to make the ask. And I think a lot of people get stuck because we stick ourselves on an island thinking that I'm the only one going through this. Nobody could be screwing this up as badly as I am. Right? And it's important to have those people around, or people that just will reach out and say, hey, how you doing? Right? Is it okay? Right? Is it really okay?
For sure. I have a few of those people in my life, and I tell you what, it's awesome. It's super meaningful.
Any books, podcasts, or anything that you've been listening to on Audible these days that's helpful?
Yeah, so I actually am going to cheat and actually pull up my Audible list. For me, reading usually means listening because just the way my schedule is. And so I just was pulling up a few books this morning. So the one I finished real recently is Leadership Not by the Book, which
I love that book.
To me. David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby. Really, really fascinating. And I think my big takeaway from that is, if we have success in business, is what are we doing to give back?
Yep.
So he's very passionate about his religion.
Yep.
But whatever it is, right? What are we doing to give back? And so that was a big takeaway from Leadership Not by the Book.
I love that book, and everybody needs to download that and listen to it, because it really, I mean, he's a Christian business leader who really has taken a stand to operate his business the kingdom way.
Yes.
They're not open on Sundays. They do really amazing things. They have, for their staff, they have ministers on staff, for counselors on staff, for many, there's just so many things that they do. They have incredible loyalty. They pay their people more than the average retail store.
Yeah, maybe more than they should, right?
Right,
but it makes a difference.
It makes a big difference, and they donate half their profit.
Yeah.
Then they invest the other half of their profit, and then they donate off the top of the profit from their profit.
Right.
So it's pretty cool what they do. So you definitely listen to that book.
Yeah, great book. I'm about halfway through a book by Walt Isaacson. It's a biography about Elon Musk.
Oh,
of course,
really?
He's the big talk these days.
Right, of course.
He's such a fascinating person, and although I don't claim to be anything like Elon Musk, I think even his childhood is somewhat like mine, right? He had to solve a lot of problems as a youngster, and he had to ask the question why. And so now, as just a great mind that he is, he will accept nothing at face value, right?
Right.
A private company should not be able to put rockets into space, right?
Right.
And yet, that's what they're doing.
They're doing it.
And they should have failed, and yet he wouldn't give up.
Yeah.
And he challenged his team.
Yeah.
And so that's a great book.
That's good. One of the things I like about Elon is there is so much intentionality, and I take it with a grain of salt too, because I know he's way smarter than I am, so I have a hard time sometimes trusting people I know are smarter than me. Because he's a master. He has the masterful chess mind. He can think 12 moves ahead.
Yes.
So whatever you're seeing today, right? That's a product of something he's already thought ahead on. Now, probably most of us listening to this, and for sure me, are not. I'm maybe one or two moves at any given moment, right? But the idea of actually taking time to think through, okay, this year, here are the things that are really important, right? This quarter, these are the things that are really important, and actually taking time to think your moves ahead a little bit is really intentional for yourself, and it will have trickle-down effect with your team as well.
The other thing that's interesting about Elon Musk is he challenges people to perform at a level way beyond what they think that they can.
Yeah.
And it would almost seem cruel in the way he does it, but yet there's something that's so invigorating, right, about achieving something that is just beyond grasp. And so I think that's really interesting. Another book that I think is really good for people to read, at least it's been good for me, and I'm working my way through it, is Basic Economics.
Oh, really?
Which sounds really boring, but he's got such great stories. The author is Thomas Sewell. But Basic Economics, and although economics sounds boring and not like something that we'd want to do, the process that an economist goes through to make decisions is a really good thing for us to think about, like why am I making this decision, and what are the real important factors for making a decision. So Basic Economics, it'll help you understand what's going on in the world better, but also I think it'll really help decision-making processes.
Yeah.
So it's been a really good book.
Wow, cool.
Yep.
Very good. Well, those are some good.
Those are some good ones. As far as podcasts, I love like Business Wars, Legal Wars, Freakonomics, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I kind of love those stories.
Cool. Very well. Good recommendations. That's a good one. Kind of rounding out here the last couple of questions before we bring it in for a landing today. What role does authenticity play? I know a lot of people give it lip service, but curious what comes up for you. What role does authenticity play as a CEO?
When I'm sitting across the desk from somebody and they know that I'm listening, I think it really frees them up to really put their best ideas on the table. And so as a leader, I try to do a lot more listening than talking, and I try to encourage people to if they come to me with a problem, I almost always kick it back to them and say, so what do you think? Because most often when someone presents a problem to me, they already have some idea what a good solution looks like.
Sure.
And most often, because they're closer to the problem than I am, they have a better solution than I do.
Yeah.
So I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I don't have to be the guy with all the answers. I just need to listen, ask some probing questions.
Yeah.
And so I think just being authentic enough for people to be able to come to me and know that I'm not going to just slam my fist on the table and say, this is the way we're going to do it. The flip side of that is in those instances where I know there's a better way, is saying, okay, appreciate your input, but this time we're going to do it this way.
Sure.
And that's probably been one of the harder lessons I've had to learn as a leader is actually saying, hey, appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it my way this time.
Right. Yeah, how do you...
And trying to find that balance.
It's such a, because, I mean, if somebody comes to you with a great idea or what they think is a great idea, it may not necessarily be aligned to the direction you're trying to go or the business is going right now or whatever. It could be a distraction.
Yes.
Christine and I have been working on this. This is through some coaching that we've been going through, and we've actually rolled this out to our team now. So there's, from a time management perspective, we have to look at, okay, is it on the stove right now? Meaning, is it cooking? Right? And if it's not, then you got to pay attention to it so we don't burn it, so it doesn't boil over, so we don't ruin whatever is out there.
Mess.
Right? And then if it's not on the stove, but it's about to be, it's in the fridge. Right? So I can pull it out of the fridge. We can get it on the stove if we need to. It's ready, but it's like, this is not today's priority. It's not this week's priority or this month's priority, but it's kind of sitting in the fridge. And then I've got a new idea about every 5 minutes for something cool that I think would benefit my business or someone else's business or whatever. So they're not always good ideas though. So they need to sit in the freezer for a while. And if they can sit in the freezer for at least 30 days, right? And if it's still a good idea 30 days from now, then we can pull it out, we can put it in the fridge and thaw it out. Everybody can go look at it and give their opinion, and then we can move it to the stove. But that has given me like a great visual to be able to communicate to people. And so my team now on our weekly agenda when we have our team meeting is everybody's got to show up with what's on the stove, what's in the fridge, and what's in your freezer.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good because it creates discipline, right? Discipline about how we make decisions. Because I'm a sales guy, right? Most of the people in my organization are salespeople, and us salespeople have lots and lots of great ideas. But we can't implement them all. So
exactly.
Figure out which are the really critical ones that are going to make a significant impact, and that's where we invest our time and money.
Good stuff, man. Well, I mean, there's a lot of moves being made in the ag industry these days. So what's the final question here today, Tim? What's the future of AgXplore?
The future of AgXplore is bringing value on the farm. We know year after year we prove. In fact, we're going to have a ceremony this afternoon and recognize a bunch of growers that have produced just phenomenal yields in 2023. We're going to recognize those people today, but we know that that we can make a big impact in the field with products like ours, and so it's an exciting time. I tell a little bit of a story, Mark. So I think from 1865 to like 1925 or 35. Corn yields in the United States average around 25 bushels per acre, and then we hybridized corn like in the 20s, and all of a sudden corn yields started to go up a little bit. And then in the 50s they came out with chemicals and they came out with synthetic fertilizer, and all of a sudden corn yields started to go up a little bit faster. We believe we're at one of those inflection points right now, and it's products like ours. We know, here's what we know. The average corn yield in the United States is 180 bushels. We know, because we have people that grow 500 bushel corn, we know the genetic potential is much, much higher than that. So right now we're capturing between 30 and 40% of the genetic potential of corn. And so the question is what's it going to take us to get closer to the genetic potential? And products like AgXplore make a significant difference in terms of capturing that genetic potential. So our future is continue to make a difference on the farm.
Good. Awesome. I like it. Well, Tim, thanks for sitting down, having the conversation today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
It's a great conversation, great resource for people to listen into. Folks, if you're looking for a little bit more information on AgXplore, want to learn more about what they're about, head on over to AgXplore.com. We're coming to you live today from the Commodity Classic, so I suppose come see us next year in Denver. At the Commodity Classic. So, all right, survival's dead. It's your time to thrive. Let's go get it. Thanks Tim.
Mark. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great answers. Made that easy. Let's make sure it recorded now.